The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
Your wife has died. So sorry.
They specifically looked at his hands for injuries, and the, I guess it was an EMT, whoever was in the ambulance with them, had indicated there were no injuries.
So you were never told why you were transferred?
There was a discussion about the transfer, yes.
Was it related to your executive summary?
It was related to my work in the Banfield case.
Tears in court and tough questions for a key detective. So how is the defense case going in the Au Pair affair murder trial? Plus, we have a brand new look at accused killer Michael McKee. His Bumble profile photos are emerging as he's extradited to Ohio. And we're spotlighting the killer craze. We're going into the minds of the women who are swooning over killer Wade Wilson. Plus, will Taylor Swift's text messages tip the scales of justice in the case involving her best friend Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni? We're talking about what we can expect to happen in court today. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for what I like to call some coffee and some court? We get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big day ahead on Court TV Live. We got a great show planned with tremendous guests, so let's get it started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. Criminal or victim, or both? What exactly is Rebecca Haro? I think that's what investigators are trying to find out. We know Rebecca is missing baby Emmanuel's mother. We know she's the wife of admitted child killer Jake Haro. We saw Jake pleading guilty to murdering baby Emmanuel. Investigators said that precious 7-month-old baby boy suffered a series of assaults, a series of them, that eventually led to his death. Baby Emmanuel's body still hasn't been recovered. The evidence shows us that Rebecca lied to police about being assaulted by a stranger and having her baby kidnapped. Her story was garbage, but the shiner underneath her eye was real. Somebody assaulted her. So who was it? Was it Jake Haro trying to keep her quiet? Was Jake the real killer, and did he make Rebecca cover it up? Those are questions that prosecutors are likely asking their investigators to answer right now. Her case was postponed, and I suspect, my friends, that is exactly why. It's possible Rebecca could be just as rotten as her husband. It's also possible that she may have been an abuse victim. We'll see what happens when she returns to court in March. And if investigators find her culpable for the death of her baby Emmanuel, then I sure hope she joins her husband in prison for the rest of her life. That's my opening statement on this Thursday. Let me know if you like it. Right now, time for your daily docket.
My immediate thought was that Matt maybe had had a tire blowout or something had happened on the road, and that he was in a car accident. I had no inkling or no thought that Matt was murdered by the family.
All right, here's what we've got coming up today. In Utah, we've got the family plot murder trial. Some are calling this case the Utah Adelsons. Court's going to continue at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Kevin West is the defendant. He's accused of murdering his brother-in-law in a plot involving his sister and his mother. In New Jersey, we have the Mansion murders trial for defendant Paul Canero. That one resumes at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And in Virginia, we have the defense case continuing in the Au Pair affair murder trial. Starts up earlier this morning than usual. Starts up at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So we're going to be counting down, and we're going to go in there live together when it starts. And that is where we start your show this morning. An emotional day it was for Brendan Banfield on Wednesday. He was wiping away tears as the jury saw body camera footage from the day that his wife was killed. Look at this. And then we heard an officer on the video talking about the news, the awful news. Let's go back to that very moment.
Your wife has died.
The defense also called Detective Brendan Miller about being reassigned. This was after he analyzed devices linked to Banfield's wife, Christine. He testified his findings didn't change even after he heard the au pair admitting that she and the defendant created accounts to lure a victim and frame that victim for Christine Banfield's murder. So, how's the defense doing so far? What do you think? And what do you think needs to happen today? Let's bring in our guest analyst I'm so pleased to have on the show this morning, Chief Chris Anderson and Attorney John Phillips. Good morning to you both. Chief, I'll start with you. There was a lot of focus on that detective and how he thought that it was Christine Banfield using the devices. Christine Banfield, who would have created these accounts, he didn't find that there would have been any time where she was not in control of them. However, we have the au pair saying that this was by design, that Brendan Banfield was smart enough to know that at some point, great investigators would be looking at his moves and know if Christine's cell phone was pinging off somewhere else, but yet the laptop was going in the house. So, Chief, how do you handle this when you're on the side of the Commonwealth and the investigators who believe they got the right guy here?
So your whole objective is to really, talk about the truth. You have to be honest in every point of your investigation. I mean, if there's something that may suggest that this person may be innocent, you're still required by law to divulge that information. So, you have to handle it like any other investigation you would do. You definitely don't try to hide anything, but you have to release it. It has to be stated.
Mm-hmm. Right, Chief. Yeah, you have to put it out there. Everything good, bad, sideways, turn it all over when you're the government. You're right. So let me take a look at a clip with you both. This is that detective, and he's being questioned about Christine and her laptop use.
What were your conclusions in your executive summary that you wrote before her recant?
That based on the digital evidence I had at the time and the facts known at the time, it indicated that the device owner was responsible for the activity on the device.
And that device owner?
Christine Banfield.
But throughout the context of all of the conversations that you saw occurring, the activity that you saw occurring on Christine's phone, could you conclusively opine as to who was behind the screen?
No.
Okay, did the Commonwealth do it there? John Phillips, what do you say?
There's a lot to unpack here that I don't know. Now, what I'm not going to do as an armchair detective for purposes of this is get on FetLife or whatever the website was, because it may be used against me one day. But there's so many different ways, from like DuckDuckGo to IP VPN, alteration, to kind of bounce things differently and change how you can forensically determine who was on what site, what IP address was linked. But again, you got to go back to whether or not the wife was ever on FetLife. The stuff about the knife, and like, this isn't something that she'd be allow in her life is key. And then it all again comes down to the credibility of the au pair. Do you believe she is this good of a liar? But it's certainly where reasonable doubt lives. And we've seen it way back, even before Mark Furman, that you find the weak link in the detective chain and the chain of custody, and you attack it.
Mm-hmm. Right, the defense team just doing its job here. John, I'm glad you brought up the knife. Chief Anderson, been wanting to ask you, harken back to all your years of working homicide cases. You were a homicide detective for many years before becoming chief of police. And here we know that Brendan Banfield's DNA was not on the knife. We know there were no injuries to his hand, or both hands. Is that dispositive? Have you ever seen cases where somebody does a violent murder with a knife and walks away unscathed and doesn't manage to put their DNA on the weapon?
Yeah, so it has happened before. I've seen it where you have a very violent murder like you described, and then the victim in that case has walked away unscathed. I'm sorry, not the victim, but the suspect in that case has walked away unscathed. It's not unheard of. Is it rare? Yeah. It's in some cases it is rare, but you have to look at the totality of the circumstances in any case that you investigate. You can't just, well, and I know you're not doing this, but most of us armchair investigators now will look at that as, that I got your moment. And that's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm. Right, Chief. I want to ask you a follow-up question on that, please. We know the way this went down. Initially, nobody was arrested. Initially, it seemed that everybody at the scene was believing that this was a situation like Brendan Banfield and the au pair described, where this intruder comes in, they don't know what's happening, he's the hero, it's put to bed. But then, as investigators kept taking a closer look, and who knows if there were any tips that came in, who knows, what was done behind the scenes, we're not privy to all of it. But we know that they first arrested her, and about a year went by where she was sitting in the jail, and then they arrest him when it's very clear that she's going to cooperate and give him up for what she says was his master-minded plot. Chief, practically speaking, how often does this happen that, investigators might look at something on its face and think one thing, and then once you get a little more information and the team becomes more informed, a different decision is made?
Yeah, so it happens more often than what we realize. I've had multiple cases where in the beginning it looked one way, but we as homicide investigators, you can't look at just the surface and then make a determination. That's why you are in homicide. You have to have certain characteristics interwoven in your DNA, not to just look at the surface and make a complete determination, because that's where justice fails. So I've had multiple cases where I've began to work on the cases and it looked one way, but after you chip away at each portion of the case, sometimes they start taking a different direction. And once you get to the end, that's where you find where it wasn't the way that you initially thought during the initial stages of the investigations. But that's just a part of an investigator or a homicide investigator's DNA.
Mm-hmm. Right. I appreciate you talking to us about what's real, Chief. We all love the shows that are done in an hour where the crime happens, it's solved, and, it's quick and easy. But in real life, things can be painstakingly difficult. Chief Chris Anderson, we have to let you go. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. We'll see you soon. John Phillips is coming with us. You do the same at home. Please, when we come back, here's what we've got.
We're very, very concerned because this is very out of character. And we can't get in touch with his wife, which is probably the more concerning thing.
I can hear kids inside, and I swear I think I heard one yell.
What's changed since the last person I talked to?
There's a body. There's
a body inside?
Yeah.
Oh my, we're taking a closer look at accused killer, Dr. Michael McKee. Yeah, the vascular surgeon. We're looking at his dating profiles and whether they could provide any case insight. And we got a brand new documentary about convicted killer Wade Wilson. We're uncovering quite a female phenomenon behind this murder. What is going on with all the women who are swooning over this guy? We'll be right back.
The Court TV podcast will return.
At this time, Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. McKee, I will assert his right to counsel. I will assert his right to remain silent. And Mr. McKee believes that the most expeditious manner in which he may defend himself against the charges pending in Ohio and to plead not guilty would be to waive his right to an extradition hearing and to have a governor's warrant and to agree to his immediate transportation to Ohio.
The defendant is Dr. Michael McKee, the vascular surgeon who's accused of murdering Dr. Spencer and his wife Monique Tepe. He's been extradited back to Ohio. I want to show you his newest mugshot. There it is. He was booked in the Franklin County Jail. That's where Columbus, Ohio is. And he waived his right to an extradition hearing in Illinois, where he was picked up without incident. Investigators say that a vehicle registered to him is linked to the crime scene. the area of the home where this beautiful couple was living. Police also say that Dr. McKee had a gun that they found in his condo that has been preliminarily matched to the homicides. Now, he's pleading not guilty. But what does the evidence show? Let's talk about that. Let's bring back in attorney John Phillips and welcome in retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffinduffer. Jen, I'll start with you, please. As you've been digging in to this case from the outset, tell us some of the things that are most astounding to you that you're learning as you dig more and more into the facts of the case.
Well, the number one thing, the biggest fact is he is at the scene with that video of him in the alley. You always want to see if there's independent information that puts the perpetrator at the scene of a murder, and there you have it right there. Not only that, you mentioned it, they've connected his vehicle to it. And now I think one of the biggest thing that's coming forward is the motive. It doesn't have to be proven, but every jury wants to understand why, after 9 years, why this ex-husband would want to commit this crime. And now we're finding out about past abuses and abusive behavior.
You know, that was something that I think many of us thought about. We talked about it a lot on this show, whether there was a history with him and Monique Tepe. And tell us, Jen, looking at the divorce documents, we really don't see anything that's there that jumps out at you. But, you know, in your experience, not everything on paper in a filing is necessarily true.
That's true, Julie, but I tell you something that did jump off the page was a 7-month marriage. That always tells me there was something that made this person get out of that marriage very quickly. Somebody who seems very, stable. And why would what would cause that? The other thing that jumped off the page to me was it took almost another 1.5 years for it to be finalized. And that usually tells me there's a big rub with somebody not wanting to let go.
Yeah, great point, Jen. John Phillips, I want to pick your brain about some of the legal things going on. He's pleading not guilty. And for folks who may be unfamiliar with the criminal system, that may sound kind of stunning based on the evidence that we've seen reported so far that police have found things Jen just noted moments ago. Is it that stunning that he's pleading not guilty? What do you say, John?
I don't know what else anybody reasonably would do. You know, the state has to prove their case. In the federal government, whomever on the criminal side has to prove their case. So unless you're caught red-handed and given a deal, I would always say, hold on to the Fifth Amendment for as long as you can and plead not guilty and let the discovery process sort it out, at least initially.
Yes, and you said the D word, deal, John. I want to ask you about that. If you're his lawyer, based on what you know so far about ballistics matching, the video evidence, the history with Monique Tepe, we have a tie. These two were married. Might you be asking for a deal right now behind the scenes, begging for some kind of deal? We know Ohio is a death penalty state, so we know that could come for him.
The problem is, and I love negotiation, criminal cases, civil cases, but if your attorney's like, hey, can we make a deal? That is coming from a sign of weakness, and it signals to the prosecutor, okay, yeah, we do have their pulse. We got them. Their blood pressure's high. Let's dig in. But there's always times to be like, look, I'm better than this, but what are you offering? That you sometimes see. I'm the key. I'm like known for saying things I shouldn't say, but like when they put his mugshot up, I like, whoa, like this guy has that, that literal blockhead that I'm not gonna say looks guilty, because that would be terrible to say, but come on.
John Phillips, we love you. We love you on this show. You never hold back. You're always entertaining. Yeah, he's cloaked in the presumption of innocence. He's got that chilling mugshot. It is chilling. It's scary looking. It's very scary. And here, this is a guy who seems to be normal, right? I think this is one of the most stunning things about it. Is he a murderer? Don't know. Columbus police say he is. Don't know. Jennifer Coffindeffer, I want to turn to you now. Let's look at his Bumble profile and look through this as an investigator would. So he calls himself Mike. He shares pictures of him and his friends. He's traveling. His work as a surgeon. He seems to be kind of a popular guy. He says that he's lucky to find his work as a vascular surgeon meaningful. He also likes art, design, basketball, football, skiing. Also currently trying hot yoga. Nothing wrong with that. Says someday he wants children. He seems normal, Jennifer Coffindeffer. He seems normal. What do you think when you look at this and you look at the facts?
Well, look, he is normal in those regards, but what was not normal about him was he could not let go of resentment and hate for his ex-wife, Monique Tepe. I mean, very specifically, she was leading the life he had only hoped to have and have it with her. This reminds me so much of the Betty Broderick case, where you have somebody fuming for over 4 years, and then they go in and commit almost this exact same style, asleep in bed, kill them both. This reminds me of that hate that you see. I don't know if we're going to get to hear his hate like we heard with Betty Broderick, but I think it's the exact same mentality.
Oh, I'm sure our Courtneys listening at home are thinking the same thing, Jen. Thank you for that. I want to mention the U.S. Sun provided those photos that we showed, so we want to credit them that were released on his Bumble profile. So I want to make mention the U.S. Sun pulled all of those that we just showed. John, I want to ask you, so the normalcy that seems to be going on with this life and the amount of time from the separation with him and Monique Tepe to the time of the incident in question, are those things favorable for the defense?
I think so. I think that's the main core defense that, he was over this. He had moved on. He was on Bumble. He was living his life. He was a proud, vascular surgeon and build that up. But to Special Agent Coffindeffer's point, it's the success of the other spouse. It's the ability of the other spouse to move on and adapt that haunts some people with narcissistic traits, that haunts some people and makes them continue to spew venom, stalk you, just try to bring you down. Now, it shouldn't result in murder. How many divorces leading to murder are we talking about these days? But it cuts both ways in some instances. But the state does an uphill battle in showing that that's what this was. That before the murder, there was some obsession.
Definitely, John. And dovetailing off of that point, which I think it's so important that we have these conversations. And you both know, you're on the show regularly. We always like to talk about subjects that are tough to breach, like domestic violence and how many people are affected. Primarily women are affected. That's what the statistics show us. And we always say the most dangerous time for a woman is when she leaves. That is true. Statistics tell us that. However, Jen, this case really seems to perhaps be an example that abuse after departure can still happen any time if you have a situation involving a domestic violence dynamic, which may be what happened here. Would you speak to that, please?
Yeah, no, exactly. And what individuals need to be aware of are those telltale signs. When somebody just doesn't leave you alone, sending birthday cards, reaching out, harassing you in any sort of way, that's when you can tell, listen, this is not going in the right direction and you have to pay special attention.
Yeah, you're right. Stay safe. Stay safe. Jen Coffindeffer, thank you so much for making the time to join us. We'll see you soon. John Phillips is coming with us. Friends at home, do the same. Get another cup of coffee. You'll want to come right back to your TV. This is what's next.
We, the jury, find by a vote of 9-3 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death.
We're spotlighting convicted killer Wade Wilson and the massive female support behind him. We've got a psychologist on the show next to break down why. Plus, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni in court today for their civil case. And superstar Taylor Swift is now involved with some revealing text messages.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back. In our spotlight this morning, we're talking about convicted killer Wade Wilson in a brand new documentary that delves into his very strange female fan club that has formed since his arrest. So Wilson is on Florida's death row right now for the murders of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz. Despite that, women are obsessed with him. Prosecutor Sarah Miller says that Wilson has received thousands upon thousands of calls from admirers while in lockup. Here's a portion of Handsome Devil, Charming Killer on Paramount+.
He's still pulling the strings from a jail cell. He's got an army of wives. That's all he's ever wanted.
There's nobody behind those dark serial killer eyes.
A rage overcomes me. Just kill, kill, kill. When I get that way, I become the devil.
Yeah, I'm under your spell.
I'm like a lion. You're the prey. I can sense it.
Oh my, so what is it about this guy that has so many women clamoring to be with him? He's a killer. Let's bring in licensed clinical psychologist, Dr. Jamie Zuckerman, Dr. Z, as they call her. Good morning to you. My gosh, what is going on with this obsession with all these women?
Oh. Yeah. I watched the documentary and I remember when this came out and it was all over social media. There's a couple reasons that can lead to this. Everything from attractiveness to that bad boy image, this kind of safe, thrill-seeking, developmental patterns you've had through childhood, self-esteem, all of them. First is that glorified bad boy image. We tend to do this on social media. We tend to do this in movies where we kind of almost romanticize the bad guy, romanticize the criminal nature of a person. We even see this in Disney, which is we see this all the time with, falling for your captor and things like that. So it's become normalized, and because of that, it's desensitized us to the victims and the horrific nature of this. There's also this vicarious thrill of this feeling of experiencing danger through association, but it's safe because he's behind bars and he technically can't hurt them. And also this need that people may have based on their upbringing, or this need to, feel familiar patterns, like feeling powerless, let's say, growing up, or feeling like you had very little control. Those patterns may be familiar, and so you seek out people in your life that remind you of those patterns. And this would be one of them, this need to fix this person, that I can do this, that somehow I'm responsible for making them better.
This is fascinating stuff you're sharing with us, Dr. Z. I've got another clip. This is one of the trailers from the case. Again, it's called Handsome Devil, Charming Killer on Paramount+. And here we're going to see his ex-girlfriend talking about her encounter with him. So what's really crazy, and we know this, we followed the trial, we watched it, we broadcasted it. He does 2 murders in a 24-hour period and commits a vicious assault in between. Let's take a look.
This case exploded on social media.
Wade Wilson.
The Deadpool killer.
This went worldwide. Got looks that kill.
Women were absolutely enthralled with him.
He was building a cult following.
Hey, Kristen.
Hello.
Hey, Breezy. What's up, baby? I love you so much.
There's fans who have never met this man showing up for this trial.
I can't wait to get out. We're going to have sex for hours.
To advocate for someone because you think he's handsome.
Did you agree to get in the car?
No.
And when you would not agree to get in the car, how did he act?
Violent, aggressive, tried to pull me in the car physically, and I resisted, got plank style so that he could not grab me into the vehicle. I'm trying to reason with him, trying to talk to him, but there's nobody behind those eyes anymore. I was trying anything that I could to expand the amount of time that I didn't have to go to his car where I'd probably never be seen again.
Oh my gosh, so he murders Christine Melton first, then he assaults his girlfriend Mila at the time, who we just saw there, then he murders Diane Ruiz. Dr. Jamie, it seems kind of like a murderous rampage he went on. He even kind of acknowledges that's all he could think about in the doc when he's making these statements that are recorded. Might he have killed more people if he wasn't caught?
I would say so. I think he was extremely dangerous. I don't doubt that he would have continued this behavior. I think we see that in those segments, in those clips. There's no remorse. That will not change over time. And there would be nothing stopping him from doing this again. This is how he gets that feeling of, power. It feeds that sense of entitlement. So yes, I think he absolutely would have done this again for sure.
Dr. Z, I find him terrifying. When I was listening, yes. I watched 2 of the episodes in the doc, and the prosecutor talks about how jurors were petrified to be in the same room as him. The eyes, the conduct, what we know he did, like you said, lack of remorse. He is a scary, he's one of those few people in society I think we really have to worry about. I always say most people in the criminal system aren't so bad. They just make mistakes. They're good people who make mistakes. Then you have a small percentage of the really dangerous people. He's one of them. Dr. Z, it astounds me that these women aren't afraid of him. Like, were they like, they want to be his girlfriend and talk to him and fantasize with him, like talk about going to visit him in the prison? How are they not terrified?
So again, I think it goes back to this idea that I would imagine some of them are, but they get this feeling of, I can control the situation, I can feel safe, although I'm still associating with them because this is over the phone. Their planning of the future is very kind of this idealized, romanticized version of what it'll be like, but it's an illusion, and they get some safety from that. So it allows them to, fulfill that need to either, it could be for fame, associating for fame. It could be this need to fix them. There's a whole host of reasons, and each person's going to be different. But I would imagine that some of them are scared. But again, that separation, that they're, he's behind bars, this is over the phone. It's a safe it's not safe, but in their eyes, it's a safe situation. They're protected somewhat. But I do want to say, and I think this is really important, is that, there's a whole other chunk to this that puts the accountability on him, in the sense of, his manipulation was so deliberate and so specific. Mm-hmm. So it fosters that that need to fix him.
Right. Ugh, he gives me chills. This is fascinating what you've shared with us, all the reasons it could be behind all the love for this killer. Dr. Z, wonderful having you on the show. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll see you soon. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, we're talking about Taylor Swift's texts. Could they tip the scales in the case of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni?
This is the Court TV Podcast.
As hard as this choice is, we break the pattern. Or the pattern breaks us.
It ends with us, released back in 2024, but most of the conversation connected to the film is tied to the public spat between co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. A judge is set to hear oral arguments in the civil case this morning. Cameras are not allowed in federal court, but most of the action has been in the court of public opinion, including newly revealed text messages from Lively's superstar friend Taylor Swift that include this spicy interaction between Swift and Lively back in December of 2024 after Justin Baldoni had spoken with People magazine. Swift wrote to Lively, quote, "I think this bee knows something is coming because he's gotten out his tiny violin." Could Taylor Swift's text messages tip the scales in this case in any way? Let's talk about it. Let's bring in the host of the podcast, No Filter with Zach Peter, my friend Zach Peter. Zach, good morning to you. You've been all over this story, so help us, please. Give us some context to these interactions. We're going to put them up on the screen and have you help us go through them. Let's go back to December 2024, where the two acknowledge there's a rift going on. Lively checks in with Swift saying she's felt like a bad friend lately. Swift replies that she feels distanced, and Lively's recent communications to her read like a mass corporate email, but she asks her to come back, please. And then later that month in 2025, early there, another text message Swift sends to Lively, news of Baldoni being dropped by his agency. And she writes, quote, "You won, you did it, and you helped so many people who won't have to go through this again." Zach, tell us, please, why is this friendship so key to this civil lawsuit now?
Well, because initially when the news first broke, Taylor Swift made it clear that she had no involvement. She wanted no part of this scandal. I mean, well, the second it became a scandal, right? When it was just the New York Times article, people were still very much, believing Blake Lively's allegations and really sympathizing with her, right? Because she was saying that she had such a terrible experience on this set. And then the second Baldoni started releasing his side of the story, that's when Taylor Swift immediately ran for the hills and was like, I had no part of any of this. I barely met Baldoni one time. And now we're starting to see these communications between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively. And it's starting to look like Taylor Swift had a lot more involvement, at least with, some of the behind the scenes mechanics with helping Blake Lively as she was trying to take more control over this film.
This is such a great insight from you, Zach, as per usual. So for anybody who hasn't really followed it closely, we know it's a hot mess what's going on with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. I mean, just a total mess. They both have gotten really messy with this, and now it's all over the place. And to your point, the Swift camp was saying, this has nothing to do with our star. She's not involved. And so now, from what you're saying, it sounds like there was some knowledge and communications going on. And now Baldoni's team is all over that, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, because they were trying to pull Taylor Swift into this, since the beginning of 2025. And Blake Lively was like, nope, she had nothing to do with it. And we even heard Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's attorney, accusing them of saying that, Blake Lively and her attorneys were trying to extort Taylor Swift, that they were threatening to release text messages. And at that point, it seemed like the friendship between Taylor and Blake really was fractured. And so now, we saw there was a report in TMZ yesterday that Taylor Swift is likely going to be called as a hostile witness come May at trial. That's what they're reporting, that they're planning to drag her into this, willingly or not. And she's going to have to answer for what her actual involvement of it was, because we see her and Blake Lively cackling as mean girls. And that's kind of the perception that we're seeing in Hollywood, is that Taylor Swift, who's had this reputation of being the innocent girl, right? The good girl. We had Scooter Braun taking advantage of her. We had Kim and Kanye bullying her. And now we're seeing a lot of that problematic behavior that she was accusing other people of doing. We're now starting to see some of that same behavior reflected in these text messages.
To that point, Zach, I'm curious, where do the Swifties stand in this? Are they mad at either of these lawsuit participants? How are they feeling this morning?
I was actually surprised. I thought, there's the fraction of Swifties that are just diehard for Taylor and she can never do any wrong, right? And that's why she's so successful. She has that loyal fandom. But I've been surprised at how much feedback I've gotten, even in my own comments, or, people responding to my podcast that are like, listen, I'm a Taylor Swift fan. I'm a Swiftie diehard, but I'm also Team Baldoni. So a lot of them are even not condoning some of this behavior because, it does look like it's mean girl energy in Hollywood. And I think there's just this overwhelming sentiment that we're tired of Hollywood bullies that are taking advantage of, the smaller guy, the David and Goliath case that we're seeing play out here with Justin Baldoni. And we're now seeing, Matt Damon was involved. Blake Lively was reaching out to Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. We saw Gigi Hadid and Bradley Cooper were, helping with the early stages of the film before it was released. We saw Hugh Jackman supporting them. So it seems like they had a really strong crew of powerful people like Taylor Swift that were in their court. as this whole, behind the scenes drama was unfolding.
Right. Excellent insight, Zach. You've done such a great job putting out so many of your videos covering this. I always enjoy watching your show. And for anybody who wants to see more, I encourage them to follow you right now. I want to bring in attorney John Phillips to answer a question you raised, Zach, about, look at John. You're so much fun. Oh, my goodness. Zach pointed out about the idea that this defense team, Justin Baldoni's team, could potentially call Taylor Swift as a hostile witness. And so I want to pick your brain. What's that going to look like if that happens?
It's me. Hi, I'm the lawyer. It's me. You knew I had to do it. I had to do it.
He's here the whole show. Friends at home. Whole show.
I don't see how it gets relevant. Like, there's certainly some active involvement in script review, but this just seems like tabloid stuff, right? Who's the bad guy? Taylor, I have 3 boys, so I had to kind of prepare for this. But like, Taylor has a lyric about, in this town, you're the only real one. That's what the court has to figure out. Which one's the real one? Because both of them, even to Taylor's point, have kind of put this on their shoulders way too much, and kind of brought in their friends when Taylor really didn't have a role in this.
Going into law professor mode really quickly. If the defense calls Taylor witness as a hostile witness, which they can do if it can be established that, she's Team Lively and biased, toward her best friend, they can treat it like a cross-examination when she gets up there. So it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be all leading questions, very, very uncomfortable. John, anything Taylor Swift can do to try to stop this from happening?
Oh, I'd file every motion in the world, because her testimony actually has to be relevant. It has to present, some level of offering to the cause of action, to the elements. And I'd say she's just shooting the crap with her friends. So, I mean, you can file motions to strike. You can fight subpoenas. She's welcome to call. We're happy to do it. 1-800-LITIGATE. But, I don't see where I get why they're bringing her in. I just don't see the legal why.
Okay. Zach, let me ask you the same question. Do you see why they're bringing her in? What value do you think she would bring to the defense?
Well, we're now seeing that there are layers and potential involvement of Taylor Swift being the one that may have orchestrated Blake Lively's relationship with the New York Times with this smear piece that was initially presented before litigation took place. I don't know what her culpability would be in all of that, but I would imagine that would go back to Baldoni's initial allegations. I know his countersuit was dismissed, but they could prove that there was malice and, intent to not only extort them, which was their initial allegation with taking over the film, but then with the defamation claims of planting this piece in the New York Times. If they can prove that Taylor Swift was initially, part of that orchestration, I would imagine that there is some fingerprints left behind that tie back to Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great points. Zach Peter, John Phillips, we got to leave it there for now. Thank you both so much for coming on Opening Statements. Friends at home, that's it for this episode. Watch it again. Go to courttv.com to do that. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on courttv.com.